Hey everybody, welcome to the Fire It Up with CJ show. Today we have Hylke Faber and we're talking about his book, Taming Your Crocodiles, Unlearn Fear and Become a True Leader. So welcome.
It's good to be here with you, CJ. It's really
It's
good to see you. Yeah.
yeah, it's good to be with you too. So tell me a little bit about this body of work and how you came across it and how you use it today.
So the body of work of Taming Your Crocodiles really started when I was a child.
A
And
child.
when I was a child, it all started because I remember being a 5 or 6 year old, and I would go with my parents to a campground, in the Netherlands, and we would be there. And the first thing I would do when we arrived, I would go find a place to observe everyone and
Wow.
like all the other inhabitants and students, trying to figure out like why are they here, what are they doing, and I would just stare into their private space, like their tent
So
or
you're kind
their
of a lurker energy.
so that like right. So I was very curious. I've always been very curious about life,
Hmm.
and that curiosity led me to lots of great things in life. So like I was born in the Netherlands, and then almost became a monk after I've done a lot of strategy consulting in New York City.
Yeah.
And during that monk phase, and this is really where Taming Your Crocodile started in earnest, I can say, I had this. Oh, I was running after success in New York City, like trying to be the first or the owner of some big thing, or like getting to the top of a big building and having lots of money. And I made it part of the world way there, but I was so internally conflicted. I
Mm.
had insomnia, I didn't sleep, I had asthma, all kinds of things. And then I discovered meditation, and suddenly I could sleep again.
Mm.
So I was like, oh, there's something about another way of being that I remembered from being a kid, like
Mm.
being in the fields, that sense of like fascination, awe.
Mm.
And so then in that moment, almost decided to become a monk and just give it all up. And then I didn't do that because it felt like an escape. You could say partial view. I wanted to have full view of life and not,
Mm.
I'm not saying being a monk is partial view, but for me it would be.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided to do this work of coaching and facilitation, and that's what Taming Your Crocodiles is about. It's basically a method to find out and to practice how I can be and how we can be more as collective and as individual of ourselves in the places
Mm-hmm.
where we work,
Mm.
so
Mm-hmm.
that we can find a way, you could say, to step out of our crocodiles, our reactive fear-based conditioning, you could say,
Mm-hmm.
and step more into our owl, which is a symbol for our heart, the wisdom, the grace, the big vastness that comes through us
Mm-hmm.
when we let it. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what method is about.
Mm. And was it based on your own personal journey and evolution, or how? And I know that part of it is it started at age 5. And do you say that because that's when you were able to? I almost, when you described it, I think of the term meta, when you take this kind of big, you stand away from it, and in some ways you see the picture more clearly. Is that what you meant when you said that at age 5, that's when it started?
Yeah, so that sense of, I like the word meta, the sense of fascination with life. Like I need
Mm,
to find out. I need to find out what is this, and that over time became, when am I, and who am I?
mm-hmm,
And for me, I realized that not being truthful about who I am causes tremendous internal pain,
mm,
insomnia, asthma, things like that, like symptoms, stress, and also chews up a lot of energy. Like I'm basically
mm.
putting myself in kind of a straitjacket. When
Ah,
you name your crocodiles, we talk about as masks, like crocodilian masks or personas that we put on,
mm-hmm,
And so it's about becoming aware of those and then finding a way with the almost like the eyes of the 5 year old. It's like, huh, I'm doing this. Like, is this really who I am?
mm, mm-hmm. So that it was when you were in New York, you were just kind of following some type of script. And then at some point you thought this is not who I am. This is why I have asthma, insomnia, all these different things. Is that what was your aha moment?
Yeah. So um, as a teenager, there were a few like the Cherokees have this great saying you may know: listen to the whispers, so you don't have to hear the screams.
Mm,
And I was an expert in ignoring the whispers,
mm,
even ignoring the screams for that matter.
yeah.
So as a teenager, I always felt different. I grew up on a farm, so I always felt different. I didn't really like the tractors and the cows. I very much liked the big views and the church organ and those kinds of things, but not the things that many people around me were into.
Hmm.
And then I almost became a musician. I didn't do that. I remember going to Carnegie Hall in New York City and crying. Like I thought, oh, no,
Oh.
I I want to make the music. I don't want to only listen, And
Mm,
so I had tons of those kinds of experiences being at work and like somebody saying to me at work, like Hylke, I was at a partner, like the youngest partner in my strategy consulting company, one of the two youngest. And this person said to me, Hylke, you seem to be really good at what you're doing, but do you really like it? And I thought that was a stupid question. I
right.
remember. But something in me was like, wakey,
Right.
wake,
Oh.
not. So it was like a combination of these things. And then I remember once having a sleepless week, and when my insomnia was on, I was like did not sleep at all. Sometimes I
Oh
would
no.
for a week,
Wow. You mean no sleep for a whole week?
zero, zero.
Wow.
And like on night seven, I was on vacation in the north of the Netherlands, and I was there with friends, lying in this bunk beds, like everyone's snoring around 3, 4 a.m. and I'm there right awake, and I'm
Oh
feeling
wow.
horrible, and I'm thinking, what's going on? Like I become like a robot. I can't sleep anymore. I make tons of money. My relationships are not working out really well. My body's falling apart. What happened to the little boy who loved the fields and the music and the awe for life? What happened?
Mm,
So
mm.
I made up my mind that I think that night it's like,
I'm done.
yeah, something has to change. And then
Yeah.
I found meditation, or meditation found me, and that was like a major gateway.
Yeah. Though you thought, there's something else alternative. And then part of you thought about becoming a monk because you like how did the decision to become a monk arise?
Well, so I remember going to meditation retreats with Pema children,
Hmm.
and the first time I went to one, I thought, oh, I'm gonna be there like one out of 10 people because I was very much still in this idea that I was really special.
Oh, like
So
I'm going to be enlightened in this Pemachona children event.
yeah, and I'm gonna be the guy.
Right.
Part of it was I wanted to be just like being the youngest partner, I wanted to be the guy in meditation. So I thought
Right.
if I give all my energy to it, I'll become the guy in this discipline called meditation.
I love it. I think all of us have done that. I'm laughing with you, not at you.
That's fine. Laugh at me. It's fine. With me, under me, over me. I don't mind it. It's that. Like I want to just be the best. And of course that's fear driven, right?
Hmm.
Because there's an internal like comparing against, and if I'm not that, then what am I? Basically
Right.
nothing. But that's the fear, right? And then another part of it was I I had so much fearful memory of not sleeping and difficult relationships, and so I was like, I never want to go back there. I like
Oh,
experiencing here on a meditation cushion with the gongs around me and like the silence and this beautiful tankas and all other symbols. It's like I like it here. Like I don't need to go anywhere else.
mm,
And then yeah, I still love monasteries. And
yeah. So, but then that's when you kind of remembered also what you like to do is be in the city or in with other people, not necessarily in the monastery. Or when did you decide to?
yeah, it was like an intuitive hit almost. Like I was
Mm,
being coached by somebody, and while I was still working at this strategy consulting company, and I was like, oh, what you're doing is what I could be doing. And then I said, well, let me dabble. Because I
mm,
was like all over the place with my mind. Let me become a monk. but then I don't make any money and then I thought, well, let me dabble in coaching, just explore.
Hmm.
And I took this coaching course with Newfield Network, which is a wonderful coaching training organization. And I was there thinking, well, I'll just dabble and maybe I'll end up in the monastery or maybe I'll just stay in my corporate job. Who knows? And then this woman was sitting next to me during one of the exercises, and I talked to her about what I wanted. And she said, oh, you need to apply to the company that I work for. And then 3 months later, I had a job full time being a coach and a facilitator at this company called
Yeah.
Action. And that was like boom, like the universe was like, you you want this? Come now.
Wow. Wow. So it happened that quickly. So you aligned yourself to what you really wanted to do, what made you happy, and then boom, it just happened.
Just happened, yeah.
And you with been and what's the name of the company?
The first company I worked with was called, I still called Excellent.
Okay.
Excellent, which
Okay.
basically means making value through value, creating value through values.
Ah, okay, got it. And that's where you started, and that's where you still are, you said, also
No.
doing that's not different than the Netherlands. Okay, got it. But you that was your start in coaching, and wasn't that miraculous? For me, I had a similar because I'm a coach myself, and so I had run into someone at a cocktail party, and she said, I almost exactly your story, but my version of it, where I was at Microsoft. Things just didn't resonate anymore. I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to do, but I knew if I didn't quit at that moment that I would be there for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So I quit not knowing what I was going to do. I was at a cocktail party very soon after I quit, and this woman said, well, you should be a coach. I'm like, what is that? I don't like sports. I don't like what? Because this is a long time ago, like 18 years ago, before coaching was really a thing. And she said, why don't you become a coach? And I said, no, no, I'm not going to do that. And then I taught a class on helping parents. She said, well, my next best advice is to go teach something that you feel passionate about. So I decided, and I cared deeply about work life balance. And I felt like it was one of the things that was so challenging for me that if I could teach what I learned to other people, it'd be great. So I taught this class. And all the women, of course, I was all corporate about it. Like I had these surveys and like asked 6 questions out of a 0 to 5 point scale and like open comments. And I got, there are half of the most of them were like 5 out of 5. This is excellent. I love this workshop. And then I got a series of 1 to 0 out of 5. And it was from the men because it was a workshop with both husbands and wives. The
Mm-hmm.
wives loved the content, and there were probably about three, whatever, men who are like, I hate you. Why do you exist? Why won't you stop talking about this? I thought, and I've never gotten like a 0 or 1 in anything that I've ever done, so I was shocked.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I was laughing, and then I thought, I guess I need more experience facilitating. So that's what brought me finally to what this woman had told me months before to go to coaching. So similarly, I had that kind of like, just boom happened, and the same kind of thing. So when you were in coaching, is that how you started under like how did the body of work in this book come across? Was it after coaching a bunch of executives or people that you thought, oh, this is what were you observing with the people that you were coaching that brought about this book?
Yeah, so I tried many models and I love all of them in some way. Some
Hmm.
tell you about which color you are, some tell you
Right.
about responsibility, some tell you about how you can communicate better and negotiate, and all of these things are very important skills. And I started to wonder, like working with executives and teams and big companies and small companies, for profit, nonprofit, and looking at myself, like, but what's really underlying all of this? Like,
Hmm.
what is it that really has the lights come on within myself and within the other? And it's usually not the 7 points towards dot dot dot,
Right.
or the
Right.
more effective this or that, which is still important, but it's not what turns on the light.
Hmm.
It's what has us move, you could say, in a horizontal way.
Hmm.
But if you think about what moves people like deeply, is when they start talking and we start talking about who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Like invariably in workshops, when we do these situations where people would share about themselves, whether it's about their fears or their hero's journeys or about what they really would like in life, the room becomes very quiet. There's
Mm.
a sense of, well, a sense of awe, like the 5-year-old on the campsite. Like there's a sense of awe, like, oh, and a sense of reverence for each other and for ourselves. And I was very taken by that. And then at the same time in my own practice, I started to see, well, the spiritual practice I'm doing in meditation, which started basically to get out of suffering, to get out of basically not sleeping and asthma. And I started to sort of not like be completely free from suffering, but get to a place of like, oh, every time I really stop and go in, I get to this place which you can call awareness or peace or joy or love, kind of the things that are written on our tombstones.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you look at the cemetery, those are the words that are on our tombstones. It's like,
Right.
well, that's our tombstones. That gets underneath it all.
Yeah.
So what if all of the work that I do when we do from now on is about that? Is
Mm.
about helping to realize who we truly are so we don't have to wait until we're like underneath that stone. We can do it right now, like
Mm-hmm.
at work. We can find a way to do it right now.
Right.
And so that's the book is called Taming Your Crocodiles, which is really about I think about it as a carving project. Like Michelangelo was once asked, "How did you make this beautiful angel of David?" Right? And you know what he said, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No,
The angel led him to carve it. It's like,
yeah, right. I saw an angel in the stone, and I carved to set it free.
yeah.
So to me, this work is a carving project.
Mm.
It's every day and using our life energy, like seeing it as our life, part of our life purpose, to use every moment as a carving project. And basically by using whatever tool our metaphor helps us to say, okay, I'm in this difficult meeting right now. All right. How is this difficult meeting going to help me to experience more of who I am?
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to how am I going to get the other person to agree with me and have this meeting be over? Uh,
Mm. Mm. Can you give me a recent example of what when you use that? Like maybe a recent meeting or something where you thought, okay, there was a
yeah.
yeah. Give me an example of what you mean.
So, in a recent meeting, I was with a business partner who didn't agree with me on something quite foundational. Yeah. And my crocodile was going off like mad. It's like, uh-oh, this is the end of our business partnership and this whole bunch of client work that we're about to do. Um, Another crocodile was like, I need to make sure that she likes me still, so I need to appease and kind of water down.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Another crocodile was, oh, I have to be really smart. So if I say the right thing, then she'll come along.
Mm-hmm.
Another one was, I'll just have to, and frankly, destroy her, like undermine her with some like pithy question to
Right.
so and all of these like these things like our mind comes up with this stuff, right? No good denying it because it's here.
Right. So
And,
you're
and
sitting in this. So, and if I were to just look at you, it would be like you sitting there, but really all these crocodiles are appearing with different options that could have happened at that next moment.
right. And so in that moment, you can see the crocodiles simply as borrowed thinking that have accumulated over lifetimes or a long time, and they're just saying, please free me.
Mm.
And not please free me and give me a lollipop and give in to me, but please help me to see there's another way.
Mm. Oh, that's a nice way of thinking about it. I like that.
And so in the Course of Miracles, it say like, I think something like pain is a call for love or hurt is a call for love. It's like, and love in this case is like stillness. So in that meeting,
Mm-hmm.
I took it wasn't, my crocodiles were still screaming. I like, okay, instead of doing all these things, I'm going to just breathe and focus on my belly button, like you could say the center of the physical body.
Mm-hmm.
Breathe into it and just ask, okay, first of all, who's talking right now, which is a central question in the book also. Is the crocodile the owl? Well, clear the crocodile is like, yep, 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 yep. Okay. Now, and then I ask, so what's really true? Like, what's really true? And what do I truly stand for? And what came for me was what I stand for is to speak my truth without speaking against somebody else's truth, and to trust life, like to realize that I am not like there a dual understanding of like there's a relative and there's a absolute, like there's this happening,
Mm-hmm.
there's also nothing happening.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore I can trust the nothing happening, the grace you could say, to take care of this. It's like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to speak my truth, and then like jumping out off a cliff, we'll see what happens.
Right. Well, it's almost what I'm noticing. It's akin to the time when you say when people speak their truth and say who they truly are, the room goes silent because the owl or the truth has shown up, and people know that that's the truth. If there's no crocodile mixed with owl, but the owl just like you feel it, and
Yeah.
then it's sort of neutral, I think.
Yeah. Now this is not a happy ending story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like, it's being in one of those episodes where you're like, oh, I hope this is going to resolve. Not yet, not yet.
Okay.
I'm actually in the middle of it because her response to this was like, she paused, and the place where we could get to in on that day is, well, we just agree to disagree for a moment, and we appreciate that we could have that conversation. And that to me was already um, a like a piece of growth. Like the other question I keep asking myself and clients is, how are you growing today? Like, how are you growing? Meaning,
Mm-hmm.
how are you recovering or remembering more of who you are? So the way to,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, oh, like I remember that my job is not to fix or convince or cajole or manipulate. My job is to be more and more authentic to this very unique piece of the whole thing, and let the whole thing take care of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. So it's an evolving story. So you just had this meeting with your, I don't know how soon ago. Was it like an hour ago? I have no
Oh,
idea.
this was a couple of days ago.
A couple days ago. And so now it's kind of evolving in some way. You know, it's funny because I have a similar situation in which I had a meeting, and it when I work with this group of people, I always feel like completely like confused and discombobulated with what to do. And I'm not even sure why, if it's me, if it's them, if it's the combination of the two, but I just feel very discombobulated. And so I normally, after a meeting, I write a meeting summary to tell everyone I had this meeting and here's a meeting summary, just so all of us can be on the same page. And I realized I don't even know what page, I think I know what the page is, but I don't even know if I want to be a word on the page anymore. Like, I'm not sure why I'm even part of the words on this page. I'm thinking, I'm not sure. I was so
Mm,
utterly confused.
mm,
And I would normally go back, because it's good business discipline to follow up after a meeting,
mhm,
write what the next steps
mm,
are,
mm.
who owns what, and what we're doing, just we're all, focused on one thing. So that's been my discipline throughout. And I came home and I thought, no, you don't know what you're going to put on that email because you frankly don't know what you want as your role, what your truth, in your parlance, I didn't know my truth. I didn't know what my purpose was there. And I know what people would have liked me to have be my truth and my purpose, but I didn't know what my own
Yeah.
purpose in being there. And so I went home and I was about to send the email and I was like, nope, better just meditate. So I just meditated. I'm like, nope, still not time to read the email or write the email. In the last couple of days, it's been 2 or 3 days. And until I have a definitive clarity with respect to my purpose, my truth, what I want, I literally can't send the email. And the old me would have sent that email, 5 minutes after I got back, cleared it, just move forward, move forward, move forward, And now I'm like, what are you even moving forward to? You don't even know what you're moving forward to. So don't take action until you're still enough to know, in the parlance of what I'm reading, it's your buddhi, it's the discernment, it's the discernment of whether it's the owl or the crocodile. It's that critical period in which you don't know. And so it's if you rise above the ego, and the kind of, I have to do this, I have to do that, and if that happens, then this will happen, and then that will be great, and I'll be like, oh yay, everyone will be like, she's adding value, and she's so great, and I'm like, okay, well, stop. You could also do nothing and have all those things be true and do nothing. So you don't have to do this. And it's not going to make you any bigger, more, whatever. It's just stop. And so I just have been every day just meditate and like, nope, still not time. And until I know it's time, I'm not really going to act. And that's such a hugely different place. But at the same time, I think if you can raise yourself to, in my parlance would be buddhi, which is this ultimate state of discrimination without ego, or owl in your model, when you can reach that point, then you must act, or you can act, and you're acting from a very different place, like from what I think you're saying is your truth, your ultimate truth.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
my most recent experience with the same idea.
Yeah.
So,
I love the idea of like you being kind of in a suspension zone
yeah,
where, you're saying Buddhi, but like am I in Buddhi or semi-Buddhi or not non-Buddhi or
yeah,
whatever
yeah,
it is, ego
yeah,
and uh like I was reading a little bit of Einstein this morning, and he said, a life lived based on pleasure and happiness is for me not worthwhile.
hmm,
And it's not that I don't, it's for me, it's that I do value happiness, but I know that in that zone that you're describing, that I also happen to be in with this partner, which I think many of us are in if we're really honest and we don't sort of default to the phew, I got this done, and phew. Like being truthful can be super uncomfortable and at the same time also very fulfilling. Like there's
yeah,
some, like it's almost like the universe, you can almost hear the universe breathing a sigh of relief. It's like finally somebody is waiting and long enough to let this bigger aperture vision in. It's like, because we need that. The like the well, we need, I think we need it. And so part of Taming Your Crocodiles is not only about doing that alone, leading self, but it's also about how you lead others in that and inspire others in that. And so for me,
mm-hmm,
I see this book in part for something that people use at work, and people are using it at work, and sort of like how to tame your own crocodiles and step more out of fear into the buddhi, into the discernment, and also to inspire a movement where we as society start to think very differently about those kind of problems, where we like problem solution, problem solution, problem solution,
mm,
ecology, sociology, economics, racism, all these things. We're kind of problem solution. It's like, I think it'd be so refreshing if all of us could just finally say together, we don't know. We
yeah,
don't. Like that sense of like, let's have a year of we don't know,
mm-hmm,
or whatever time is needed. Let's be in the don't know and let what we do know or need to know come.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're not, I think that when that happens, you're not taking the pre-constructed ideas or the egos or the patterns or whatever you're talking about, right? Because the things our patterns, right? Like I should destroy her. I need to make her my best friend. These are all patterns that we have that are just like woven very tightly. And if you can just like loosen and breathe into the pattern so that they unravel and are just threads flying through the air, then we can kind of like see clearly, right? Instead, we have these, like burlap on top of us, a piece of cotton, who knows what else thrown on top of us. And so, and I can see that so many times in life. It's so much better to just say, I don't know. Or, I was and talking about managing or working with other people. I wasn't necessarily managing, but I was relating to my husband. And he said, when you did that, that just made me, we were talking about something I had done. I don't remember. We were having lunch, and he was unhappy with something that I did. And said, that was really, that made me really mad. It made me very upset. Why did you do that? Or just, this is what happened to me when you did that. And I sat there, and my normal position would be like my crocodiles would be like, here's why you're wrong. I'm right. Here's, I need to prove that I'm right. All this stuff, different stuff. And I just sat there and was like, look at that. Isn't that fascinating? How all these patterns came up. You have to prove that you're right. You have to give evidence and explanation and rationalization for why you did what you did, and why, in fact, what he's thinking now that he knows your rationalization for why you did that will realize that will make him wrong, which means that you'll be right. Yay! So I just watched the machinations of my mind. And he sat there and told me this, and I said, hold on, hold on. And I just watched these bubbles, these crocodiles float up. And I was just breathe into your center. I'm like, wow, that's fascinating. You don't need to be right. Why
Yeah.
do you need to be right? He's just told you that you hurt him. So, and you want to instead rationalize why hurting him was okay. This is not correct. So I went through this whole thing. Well, I looked at him, I said, I'm really sorry.
Mm, yeah, that's beautiful.
And he said, well, was there anything else? And I said, yes, but if I tell you, it's going to not negate from the fact that I'm sorry. So I'm just sorry. And he said, thank you. That's thank you. Because I didn't go through the normal patterns of our conversation, and it was just huge to just go through that. And so tell me, when you're managing, how do you use this model in your book, Taming Your Crocodiles? And when you're managing others, how does that work?
Hmm. Well, for me, it's like a lived experience.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I spend a lot of time uh, leading workshops or doing coaching. And often for workshops, I ask people just to read part of the book beforehand, or I share some of the models. And in a nutshell, you can almost summarize the whole book in like 3 or 4 questions,
Okay.
and and so in conversations with myself or another, because also like when I train facilitators, uh, the thing we always talk about is, hey, we're always facilitating, especially when we're by ourselves. We're facilitating our crocodiles and like what you're saying, like all the things that are coming in front of our awareness that are saying, please, I want to be seen through. I'm tired,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Like I'm the participant in the workshop who doesn't want to get it. I'm the participant in the workshop who needs to be right. I'm the participant in the workshop who is very scared, doesn't say anything. I'm the hurt one. I'm the one that can't master the beat. Like all of these, like, and that's why I think workshops are so great, because they're like a magnifying glass
Yeah.
of what happens inside of us.
Yeah.
And so facilitation, like training, happens 24/7 because we're always having these participants, crocodiles, show up. So then, so when I talk to myself, I ask myself the question, but in workshops also. So first question to me is always, so tell me more about who you are. So who are you, and who do you think you are? And that's deep question, which to me is an endless journey. It's like a diamond answer, which is meaning there's never an answer because there's always another facet. And in spirituality, we talk about peace and joy and love and bliss and those kinds of things. And of course, all of these things are true, and all of the other things are true too.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, the trueness of who we are, it has something to do with the all-encompassing, whatever that is. And we can call it
Mm-hmm.
awareness or whatever that is. And then there's many, many endless aspects. I can't tell you what that is because it's an endless journey, and depending on where you are, it looks like this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first question.
Who are
And
you? Who are you and what matters to you?
yeah, like who are you really? And what matters to you is like you could see a derivative of it, like what do you value, which has to do with who you are. Because if you feel like you're love, then you might value care or kindness. If you think your spaciousness, you might value in curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
If you think you are peace, you might value a sense of inclusion or whatever it might be. If you're creativity, you might value laughter or those kinds of. So
Mm-hmm.
there's so many pieces to it, and to me, it's like that. It's like going to a great restaurant. Like, oh, I'm going to try this part, and there's this part, this. There's so many different parts of me. It's like this is like makes this insight revelation. It's delicious. Like, oh, another aspect of me. Like I didn't know that part of me. Uh, it has to do with sadness and being with the energy of sadness and
Mm-hmm.
there's a tenderness and a rawness that comes online when I allow myself to be with
Mm-hmm.
sadness.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so many aspects. So that first question is that,
Mm-hmm.
and we could end there. But because so that question helps to bring the energy from outside to my email, to my people, to my dot 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 to inside. So it's the first question is like going from outside, just like inside, which I think is to me is like such a revolution
Mm.
because I know that like my survival based nervous system wants me to look first thing in the morning saying, am I safe?
Mm.
My partner's still here, whatever. Alarm clock's still working. What time is it? Am I going to get on?
Right.
All this, and as opposed to, who am I really? Okay, peace is waking up. Okay, whatever.
Mm. Interesting.
That's the first question. Second question then is, as soon as I get into this question, I start to notice things that are, you could say, pull me down,
Mm.
reactive, call those crocodiles. And then part of it is what pulls me up or what like pulls me to
Mm.
the owl. So the second question is when I get into this exploration of who am I and also how do I interact with the situation of life and life being a great teacher, like who's talking right now that's interacting? Is it the crocodile, the owl? Is the crocodile does
Mm.
resistance, whatever it might be, or is the owl who's like, yeah, I like to listen to this. This is interesting. So that's
Mm.
so we'll talk about that in workshops and like the many models we talk about in Tame Your Crocodiles to understand basically the fears. So we classify them into what we call 7 fear families, which have to do, if you're familiar with the chakras, the 7 chakras, or Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's all related, right?
Okay.
So giving us sort of a map of our fears so that first of all we don't feel so alone. It's like,
So,
oh
like
yeah,
our 7 chakras. So, for people who aren't familiar, so there's the first chakra, which is about like safety, security. So it's like that's one form of fear. The other
fearful.
one is, yeah. Tell me the 7 fears, just for people who are not familiar with the
Yeah.
chakras.
And this is a very approximate map, right?
Yes.
Because as humans, this is the big like disclaimer. As soon
Yes.
as you give somebody a map, or I
Right.
give me a map, like that's it. But this is not true. So the step, like, it's just a map.
Right.
It, and there's many. So the first one is about a fear of safety, survival,
Hmm.
money, not having enough,
Right.
not being able to handle, right? Second one has to do with relationships, so fear of abandonment, fear of not fitting in, fear of disappointing, fear of being judged, all of these things, which come out as judging and pleasing and all kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
Third one having to do with the fear of actually losing control. You could
Mm.
say it has to do with my the hara, with the navel, with like, and of course having some sense of control or center is okay, and then the ego makes it like, I'm gonna make this conversation like with the partner, but the conversation, I'm gonna make the conversation work out this way, as opposed to like this the fear is losing control, and the resolution is more to do with being centered in my purpose, you know, being centered. And then the fourth one is about the fear of having to do with the heart center, the fear of um, being like totally overwhelmed by everything that's happening
Mm-hmm.
and uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a sense of like, oh, I can't handle uncertainty. So I have a fear of uncertainty. And then a fifth one has to do with the throat expression, the fear of getting hurt. Like, what happens if I open my mouth? Well, I better shut down or
Mm-hmm.
don't really share my gift. The sixth one, having to do with the third eye, intuition, has to do with the fear of complexity, like being overwhelmed. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
too much going on here, and I need
Mm.
to make it simple. So yeah. And then the seventh one is about the fear of
Yes.
uh, like the surrender, the top of the head, fear of losing who I am, like the fear
Mm.
of identity. So there's a simple map that we put together
Mm-hmm.
to have people sort of have a language like, oh, I've got number one and three. Which one is I operating you today? Oh, well, I'm on crocodile five today. I try to make sure that I don't get hurt, so I just play small.
Mm-hmm.
So all of to me, it's like languaging. So it
Mm-hmm.
becomes online, and of course, these are not precise descriptions; they're pointers.
Right. There's just, it's a rough, if you can't, if you want to have a quick snapshot about where you are, I think the seven that you describe are close enough to describe any fears that I've ever heard, any client that I've had. I mean, it's why it's a part of a chakra system. So then, how about that's one question. Who am I? What matters to me? And what are the crocodiles that are keeping me down? And then what are the things that are, what is that the fourth question, or what question are we on now?
So we did number one, which was what am I? Who am I? So number two was who's talking? The owl, the crocodile.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third one, and then of course the question 2A would be like which one? Like once I got into crocodile land, trying to understand which one of these seven fear families and how does it relate to my belief system and
Mm,
so on. And we talk about yin and yang in the book in terms of understanding like how my owls might be out of balance in terms of my strengths and my connectedness and my purpose, and how my crocodiles might try to become super yin, like super pleasing, or super yang, super controlling, and so on. So we try to create a map that people can see themselves into. Then the third question after that, after who's talking, is a question of forgiveness, which is
mm,
how are you growing today? Like,
mm,
think about yourself in this endless cycle of evolution,
mm-hmm,
and you have the wherewithal to ask yourself like these questions, which are about not only your growth but about you changing the consciousness of the whole chain here. So how are you growing?
mm,
Not how well did you do or how far have you gotten,
mm-hmm,
but what's the, like, even if you made a little small, like for example, your example, you didn't send the email. So, like, how are you growing from that? And inside, how are you expanding inside? And for me, it's
mm.
like with this conversation with this partner, how it could almost visualize the root of truthfulness going just a little deeper.
Mm. Okay, wait, let's use your map. So the first question is who, I want to use that to kind of so people can see how you apply the four questions. So who are you if you were to take it in the context of your partner, who
Yeah,
are you?
yeah. So the thank you for that. So who am I would be I am truth. Like being truthful, that's part of the innate nature of reality. I'm truthful. Truth.
Hmm. Yeah, that's where that's the thing that matters most to you. And then you said, where are you? And you described all the crocodiles that came up in
Yeah.
that previous example. And where would you say that is on the map of where you are in the seven chakras?
So the second question, who's talking?
Oh, who's talking?
Right. Clearly, lots of crocodiles are talking. So
Right.
if you think of which of those seven was most active was number two,
Okay.
which the fear of abandonment, like the relating relationship, like so glued in to the consensus consciousness idea of relating, which is saying like I water down, so I stay in the water with you. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So
That.
that's who you were. That's the
Yeah.
analysis of who you are. And then what's the next step?
How are you growing?
How are you growing? So how are you growing?
Well, I'm growing by allowing myself to see that I am very scared of that
Mm.
abandonment and like, yeah, it's a scary place. It feels still pretty awful in my body.
Yeah,
But
feels raw when you tune into it.
yeah,
And then where do you go after that? So here you are feeling raw and tender and awful. Now what's the next step in
Well,
your model?
but there's the how are you growing, which to me is the conclusion also,
Okay.
which is, and I'm learning to surrender that
Mm.
rawness to who I am, which has something to do with truthfulness and knowing that when I take a step into truth, something else is stepping into truth as well, even if I can't see it. You know,
Hmm.
maybe something gets triggered in this partner. Maybe in a next conversation when I need to be truthful, I remember this experience, how the world didn't collapse.
Mm.
Maybe when I hear one of my inner crocodiles show up tomorrow, I'm not denying it. Like we say, denying, don't even know I'm lying.
Right.
So, no, it's like being able to say, okay, so I'm growing into who I am. I'm
Mm.
growing in truthfulness through
Mm.
this experience.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
yeah. So those three questions are like the essence of it. And then the after that comes, how do I relate this to somebody else? Like
Mm.
conversation, and how do I create a culture around me, which maybe we can talk about briefly. How do I create a culture around me in an organization? Because it's a great thing about humans. We're not alone. We're in companies. We work together. You worked at Microsoft. People work in teams, and we can create a culture where self-discovery, like the work we're talking about here, doesn't become the exception of the workshop or the coaching or whatever, but becomes the norm.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me we call that a growth leaders network, mindset, as distinct from a growth mindset, where every moment is seen as a moment for self-discovery.
Mm-hmm.
So that
Mm-hmm.
we encourage each other to ask these questions,
Mm-hmm.
conversations about it, and together reflect on, who are we truly together? Who's talking right now? Who's running the show of dealing with this crisis or getting to this new market or whatever it might be? What are we doing? And then how are we growing? And so that becomes
Right, it's a cultural thing. So you're asking of the group, of the market that you're creating, where and asking of those same things as if it's a living entity. The group is a living entity, but creating an entity in of itself, the culture, and
yes,
then asking the same questions.
yeah,
Lovely.
yeah,
Very
yeah.
lovely. Okay, so that's the kind of work that you do. In the next couple of, we have one more minute to wrap up. So tell me if folks want to connect with you. Of course, there is this book, Taming Your Crocodiles, which has everything that we talked about in it. And then there's also, tell us about your website and how people get in contact with you because you do workshops, you do facilitation.
Yeah. If for those who are really interested in it, there's the book, and then there's also the Leaders Coach courses at the Columbia Business School Executive Education that I teach online,
Mm-hmm,
and they're twice a year. So
mm-hmm,
that's a great way if you like saying, how do I apply this self-discovery at work? That's a great way
mm,
how to do that, and
mm-hmm,
how do I coach others? And then I give workshops, and you can go to the there's a Facebook and a LinkedIn page called Taming Your Crocodiles, so you can connect with me there.
Hmm.
Um, and there's also our websites on constantc.com and growthleadersnetwork.com. So there's various ways, but I would say start with the book and maybe check out the course with Columbia Business School to get a sense of what we're doing.
And can anyone sign up for the course in Columbia Business School, or do you have to be a part of the business school?
You can sign up for the course because it's executive education. It's ongoing ed, so you can sign up wherever
Oh,
you are.
cool.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And that happens twice a year. When's your next class that you're teaching?
In February, and
Excellent.
yeah, yeah, that's
Excellent.
good.
Thank you so much. We've been talking to Hylke Faber, writing his book, Taming Your Crocodiles, Unlearn Fear and Become a True Leader. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, CJ. It was a delight to be with you. I enjoyed exploring this with you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, blessings. All right, thank you.